Welcome back to the channel. Today we're reacting to Marvel's Spider-Man 2 features trailer for PC. So Spider-Man 2 is now coming to PC today, the 30th of January 2025. And I'm just going to see what a PC version has over the PlayStation version. And I also am going to confirm specs because, yeah, my PC is old. And probably I'm not going to be able to have any of the features they have enabled, but hey, if it has FSR or something and it can actually just start up, that's already a bonus for me. So let's just check it out.
Whoa, let's go!
Coming to PC.
Teamwork making the dream work.
Upscaling and frame generation, okay, that's ultra widescreen support, that's also cool. Ray trace, yeah, I'm not going to be able to use that.
We can fight this thing together.
DualSense support. Hey, I have a DualSense controller,
What's
so.
the matter? Two Spider-Men too tough?
Coming to PC on January 2025. Okay, so here's the post from Nixxes Software with the requirements. And first off, let's check average performance 720p 30 FPS. Very low settings. You're gonna need a GTX 1650 or AMD Radeon RX 5500 XT. As for the CPU, i3 8100 AMD Ryzen 3100. Now, usually you can get away with the CPU somewhat. You're gonna have issues with slower CPUs, but you can't get away with older i7 or something like that. However, the recent ports, some older i7s ran into issues with F16C instruction sets or AVX2 instruction sets for older i7s, like a i7 first gen and second gen, and maybe third gen. I'm not sure about fourth gen. I do think fourth gen is okay. So you need to know about that. I will confirm if it actually requires the F16C or AVX2 instruction set. However, and then it's 16 gigs RAM. 16 gigs RAM is standard. Windows 10 or 11 64-bit version 1909 or higher. And here's the important part, 140 gigabyte SSD storage. So that's important, and it's probably absolute requirement. As for the recommended, is 1080p 60 FPS on medium settings, an RTX 3060 or AMD Radeon RX 5700, and the i5 8400 or Ryzen 5 3600, also 16 gigs RAM, same Windows and SSD. Now for high settings, you're gonna need it is 1440p 60 FPS high settings, RTX 3070 or AMD Radeon RX 6800, and an Intel Core i5 11400 or AMD Ryzen 5600, 16 gigs RAM, same Windows and SSD storage. Now for ray tracing on. High ray tracing 1440p 60 FPS. The graphic settings on high ray tracing, NVIDIA RTX 4070 or RX 7900 XT. Also the same CPUs, 11600K or 5600X. So the X version is it's basically just the K or overclocked or faster versions of that respective. And 16 gigs RAM, still same Windows and SSD. For very high, it's 1440p 60 FPS with very high ray tracing settings of 4080 or a 7900 XTX, and an i7 2600K or 5900X, also 16 gigs RAM, same Windows and SSD. Now this is the ultimate ray tracing. This is for the ballers out there. 4K 60 FPS graphics, very high ray tracing ultimate. It will require RTX 4090. The requirement is 4090. Intel Core i9 12900K or a 7800X 3D and 32 gigs of presumably DDR4 or DDR5, since the 12900K can run with DDR4. and Windows 10, same versions, and still 140 gigabyte SSD. So as for the minimum requirements, I do think that's respectable. If it works on that minimum requirements. Now, I'll try and test it on my old i7 2600K and see if it will work. Because my i7 should be in the ballpark of these CPUs. So the 3100 should be about 30 to 50% faster. However, my CPU is overclocked, and it should be at least close to this. So usually the developers overspec the CPUs compared to the GPUs. GPUs usually is underspec, meaning they'll recommend something that barely works, and for the CPUs they overspec it sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. So maybe we're in luck there. I'll test it out. So, and I'll test it with a GTX 970, and that should be around the 1650. I'm not 100%, so let me just tech power up. I want to compare 1650 to a GTX 970. So let's just check here. Tech power up. Graphics cards, GPU database. Let's go with GTX 1650. Here's a 1650. Now let's compare that to a 970. There's GTX 770, 780, 470. Let's see. Here's, so the GTX 970 is about 70% faster. Now this is not absolute, this is just generalized. You shouldn't take this with 100% accuracy. This is only a generalized performance test. These people probably tested it in the database and it seems to be around there. So it should be the same as at least it should have the same performance, 30 FPS, low minimum setting 720p with a 970. However, if the drivers are an issue, meaning it's not well optimized or something, because sometimes older cards don't get fully utilized, or some weird stuff happens where it has more issues like graphical glitches and stuff. So I'll test it out with a 970 and see if actually there is any of these issues. Well, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. And remember to like, comment and subscribe, and let me know if there's any other game you're looking out for, and if you think you can play it with your PC specs, because these days PC specs are getting crazy with a 4090 requirement. Now it's understandable, ray tracing and stuff, 4090. However, I'd say people should be fine in this area. 1440p, 3070, it's not bad requirements, it's just the ultra settings are very intensive. I feel sad for people that like bought a 4070 or 4080, because those cards are expensive. And if they can't play ultra, what's the point? They still would need 4090 for that. However, I do think you can probably get away with like a 4080 playing 1440p with the ultra ray tracing instead of very high. Because of their resolution dropped intense, it's less intensive. And if you're okay with like 50 to 60 FPS, is this with DLSS or something? I'm not sure. They need to clarify that, because there's no stated if it's running with DLSS or not, but I'm presuming it uses upscaling, because it's also in the trailer they talk about upscaling. Well, thank you for watching, and goodbye.